Hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in. I have my buddy Andy Pickup here. Thanks, Andy, for coming by.
My pleasure.
Smartest guy I know in the world. We're going to discuss the bailout and what we think's going to happen, or what you think's going to happen. I'm going to shake my head knowingly. Anyhow. Now it's
What
time
do I
for
think
you
is going to happen? Well, what do we know? Past the Senate?
Yeah, past the Senate.
Coming up again in the House?
Yeah. Now, Senate was 74-25. I didn't know who didn't vote.
I'll tell you who didn't vote. People who are running for re-election this year. A third of the Senate's up for re-election, and they didn't vote. The two-thirds that are safe, they voted.
Yeah, I think that's what it is kind of across the board, right?
Simple as that.
I watched this morning, and
The trouble is, 100% of the House is up for election, and therefore...
no, we need... And that's why we've got $2 million exemptions for wooden arrows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, horrible, right?
That's right.
And, you know, both Obama and McCain at the last debate said that they weren't going to allow politics as usual and all of this pork and this kind of thing. And now this is the first big political event after that debate.
Yeah.
And here we go.
Yeah, when they say it's not about the money,
It's about the money.
When they say, let's keep politics out of this.
Yeah, here we go. I saw politics, guys. I saw bingo cards for the debate tonight. You can find those. You just have to Google them, right? I thought they were hilarious. You and I have a dollar wager on this bailout, don't we?
You're going to have to remind me what that wager is.
Oh, boy, I'd like to. Right? Yours was that it passed unanimously.
Oh, dear. What was I thinking?
German Mike, you're going to have to craft an email to this account, okay? Backdate it.
Like the rest.
Yeah, like the rest. A bunch of crap. And mine was that something would happen. So I'm looking pretty good on this one.
You said that some sort of bailout plan, no matter how egregious, pork-laden, bankrupting it may be, you said something will happen.
Yes.
And you think you're looking good. I think you're looking good, too, by the way.
You think it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you think they're going to talk about that on the debate tonight? This bailout? Or do you think it's going to be a little more scripted?
I think it's going to be highly scripted.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read the rules have changed. They have, like, 90 seconds to do their canned response and then 2 minutes of chit-chat, as opposed to the first debate, which I think like 2 minutes of canned response and 5 minutes of chit-chat. So there's no chit-chat time, so it's basically memorize a slogan and spit it out, more or less, on cue.
Now, they have that woman who's going to make money from her book on Obama, right, who's like a super liberal. She's from PBS. She's going to be the moderator for that. So she's not going to get to ask questions. I'm not sure I your
assumption that the PBS moderators never...
Could be liberal?
Yes.
Yeah, there goes Doug jumping to conclusions again.
A liberal.
So I guess she won't have time to say nasty things. I guess she'll just smirk or make funny faces whenever Pound says anything.
I think you're confusing her with Sean Hannity, aren't you? My guess is she will read, in a relatively straightforward way, approximately 10 excruciatingly dull questions.
Yeah. Will you watch these?
I think it's relatively unlikely that, while Biden is answering the question, she'll leap out of her chair, run round the back of Sarah Palin, and whack her on the head with a piece of salami.
Oh, you got another dollar? I got another dollar, so that's at least a 50-50
I think you're reading some talking points here. I don't think it's going to make much difference.
No?
No.
Now, what about this bailout? Do you think the bailout's going to make much difference, Andy?
Yes. I think, well, okay, let's talk about this. To me, it's all about how, not what, right? Not what, not whether, it's how. It's whether, let's put it bluntly, whether Paulson is lining up to run the biggest hedge fund known to man,
right,
and, just acting as a vulture hedge fund, buying cheap assets at, good deals, negotiating them well, and holding them. Because the government has two unique positions in the marketplace. A, it actually has the lowest borrowing cost of anybody out there,
right,
and no limit on how much it can borrow / print. And secondly, it has a very different time dimension. There are no quarterly reports that it has to get out to investors. There's nobody that says, listen, government, if you don't make money in the fourth quarter, I'm going to take my money out of you. I don't think it works that way when you're the government. You can't take your money out of them.
No, I've been trying for years. It hasn't panned out.
And it doesn't work right.
No.
So they're absolutely unique to be buying assets relatively inexpensively and holding them 5 years. Because there are many people, many credit analysts out there who think that a lot of the pricing in some of the weaker performing assets is just mispriced. The problem is
There's no market.
The problem is not a valuation problem. The problem is a liquidity problem.
Right.
So there's no buy side for, in the
So
bid ask.
you can't value it.
You can't value it. But in actual fact, these things will be worth a lot more than they appear to be worth because of liquidity, and that the government is uniquely positioned to make a bundle, put it bluntly.
And do you think that's what they'll do?
I don't know. The trouble is, once they make a bit of a bundle, someone might turn around and say, why are we making so much of a bundle? Why don't we be nicer to either the bank and pay more in the first place, or why don't we be nicer to the underlying credit holder and let's just tear up this bond and let these people's mortgages go? I don't know. I don't know how. That's why I say what they do. If they were just a ruthlessly aggressive vulture fund, I think it'd be fantastic.
Right.
Fantastic.
Right, because they could get liquidity back in there.
Well, liquidity back in there. There's always a buyer at some price.
Yeah.
And because they have a very different investment perspective, they will make a fortune.
Now, you know what I didn't understand? I saw a letter this week from John Allison. He's the CEO of BB&T's Outgoing.
Yeah.
Right, and he's somebody that I've met and that I think a lot of.
Yep.
But he was outraged because he said Paulson, being former Goldman chair, right? He said Goldman and Morgan Stanley are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this bailout. And I really didn't understand that. Are they the biggest holders of these derivatives, or they'll become liquid again because of that?
Have not yet gone bankrupt.
Yeah, the biggest existing.
They're obviously biggest holders. I mean, Morgan Stanley was always, believe me, I have no inside information. Morgan Stanley was always, raised as the next guy to come under pressure, right?
Well, yeah,
more so than Goldman.
They were talking about Morgan Stanley and Wachovia were going to combine. But Morgan Stanley was at 30 times equity leverage, and Wachovia was only at 10.
Well,
so they
and
couldn't
Morgan
figure a way to bring them together.
Was the next independent guy who didn't have enough capital but still had a bunch of junk on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
And
now
are they
Goldman
going to benefit? Yes, of course they're going to benefit. Of course they're going to benefit hugely.
And now Goldman just got $3 billion from Warren Buffett.
That's right, and they both turned into
banks.
$5 billion. They're both converted to bank holding companies, which is good for both of them in one sense, in that they have funding sources via the Fed that they just don't have access to.
Right.
They just don't have access to as investment banks. On the other side, they'll have banking regulations that they now have to conform to. So their higher risk activities are going to be somewhat constrained. Some of the prop trading is going to be constrained, I'm sure. I'm not a banking regulation expert, but you've got to believe.
Do you know who I saw that they said now is going to be the largest still investment bank? Is Raymond James.
I guess you're right. Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking, I suppose Jefferies would be up there, Raymond James.
Yeah.
There aren't that many of them, right?
Right.
So here's my thought, or another topic, which is equities. What is happening here? You're going from a very fluid investment banking market where you had, the integrated banks like a Citi at one end, then you had the large investment banks like a Merrill, Morgan, Goldman, then you had the medium-sized investment banks like a Lehman and a Bear, then you had the small to medium like a Jefferies and a Raymond James, then you had the small. Well, we've just seen the medium size disappear completely, right? Lehman, Bear,
right.
We've seen Merrill become a bank, effectively.
Yeah.
We've seen Goldman and Morgan that are on their way to becoming banks.
Yeah.
So they're going back to the top end of the market, but constrained in terms of some of the activities they can do.
Yeah, no more wild ideas kind of thing.
Potentially a huge opportunity for some of the smaller banks to move
come up
into
mid-tier, right?
Absolutely. In these advisory and, brokerage activities, you bet. I expect to see them gain share. I hope the aggressive ones will actually try and gain share.
Yeah, that'd be nice, right?
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of those that we see throughout the year that we think quite a bit of.
That's right. Because fundamentally, the equity markets are not healthy right now, obviously. But there's nothing fundamentally wrong with equity as a product, in that I can argue there's something fundamentally wrong right now with, credit derivative swaps, or credit default swaps, or, certain kinds of asset-backed securities, there's a fundamental problem
Right.
going on. There's not a problem with equity. It's an enduring, simple product.
It works well.
It works beautifully. It's just that the underlying assets of the companies are being hurt by the credit problems, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, fantastic, Andy. Thank you very much. Always a great pleasure.
My pleasure to be here.
Hey, guys, we'll have more for you at WSMCO.com.